right, welcome back to the shop. This will be tape 25 of the build series, the 2025 build series. So today, we're going to be fitting up the back of the stab around the fuselage side. I did a bunch of things off camera. I use superfill. All of you guys have used this stuff before. Really good, light. You can get it on Amazon, Wix. There's a couple of places you can get it from. So what I did the other day off camera is fit the saddle fit up where the stab goes. I got to clean up the edges on it, but just how I did it. I put the stab on. I put a piece of wax paper on the bottom of the stab, bolted it up, and then I took the superfill and kind of just pushed it into the gaps to fill any of the gaps. The fit up's pretty good. I may have to do a little bit of glue fill in a couple spots where it looks like a low spot, but it's pretty close to it. I fit up around the stab, and then I did around the back half of the elevator as well, and I also did the fillet between the fin, the rudder fin, and the back of the stab. But even that gap there, I closed that all into. Same thing. I also use Scotch tape too. There's another trick you can use. This stuff doesn't love to stick. This Scotch tape needs epoxy. So what I did was I put Scotch tape around the flange here, and then I put the superfill on it, and then you kind of just, it'll release itself off the Scotch tape. I also did the same with the wing fit ups. I'll show you those too. So if you look, that's just filling in a little bit of a gap. On this side, the gap was very tight and good, and even around here, I cleaned it up. The other thing with the superfill, the lead out guide, I kind of just to clean up the edges of the lead up guide, the front and back, that as well. All right, so for today, I'm going to be cleaning up sanding in the superfill here, cleaning the fit ups up. Same thing on the back fin, and the other thing is I'm gonna install the tip weight box cover on the outboard one. So, oh, just anyway, the wing, same thing. I Scotch tape all the way around, had it bolted up, just fit the superfill in, and then had it release. The other thing you could do is you can put wax on. You can put the Scotch tape on, and you can just put a coat of wax on. It'll even make it release even easier. You do have to release it. You do got to kind of work it a little bit if you don't put wax on it. All right. So I'm just gonna be working on sanding it and get the fit up right. So I'll use a piece of 150 sandpaper or a block. Just really knocking down the high spots. Taking any light flashing off of it. Just carefully not sanding into it. You can put a piece of masking tape here if you want to give yourself a guide that you can stop to. And we use our sanitize almost level, and there'll still be a little high spots, and then I'll go with some 220 over it to clean up the rest of it. But use 120 to kind of get the big stuff knocked down. And even on the inside, if you'll see, some of the superfill comes in. Oh, you can see it. You can see the little tab in it. I'll take my Dremel and kind of just clean that up as well. But just knocking down the high spots. The superfill sands really quick and easy, especially with you know, like 150 or 120 paper, 220. So you can really knock it down pretty quickly. Alright, just clean up the flashing. I try to always use a block on a lot of stuff, just to keep stuff from digging in and being flat. You gotta be careful when you go from soft balsa to the harder, like the superfill is harder than balsa, so you always just gotta be very careful with that. And I really try not to lean on the soft balsa, because you'll dig right into it. So what I'll do is I'll start on a little bit of an angle to cut into it and then lay it down flat. See, and you get the feather on. The other thing is your hands or your fingers are probably the best thing, because your eyes will deceive you at times. When you run your finger, you can feel what's high and low. Alright, so that's cleaned up enough. Alright, so now I'm going to clean up these edges. As you can see, big globs in here. I'll clean that all up, clean the outside up. And then we'll fit the stab back on to see how we did. But it looks pretty close. But again, the other thing you can do is, like I said, if you want, you can put a piece of tape down here to help so you don't dig into it. Piece of Scotch tape left on here. And the Scotch tape I use is it's very shiny, so that's the other reason why. So it's almost like a painted surface. And that's why things don't like to stick to it on the outside. Just keep working until you get up to around the edge. So I'm pretty close to the edge. I gotta do some finish sanding in there. But it's close on that side. Same thing up here, kind of gotta just work it in. Here you want to keep the contour of the fuselage, so you gotta be careful. The one thing you don't want to do is cut back on the edge, because it'll round off the edge and you'll see the seam. So carefully hold it parallel with that surface. The other side. Okay, it's not bad. All right, now I'm gonna take my Dremel and kind of clean up the edge with a sanding disc. I'll just clean up the inside of the fin as well. Okay. All right. Pretty good fit up. I do have to put a little bit of super. I got a little deviate, I got a little dip in here that I have to take care of. Just a small amount of filler will go in that spot to fix that. Alright, so I got a little work to do to fit up the bottom here, which is good. Alright, so let's see. Just clean up that edge a little bit. Okay, pretty close, pretty good fit up. Alright. I do got a small spot I gotta work on here. We'll put some filler in here to kind of clean that up, but overall that's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, I could feel there's a little dip in here. Put the stab on. Kind of just hold it in place and look at it. Yeah, if you can see, it's pretty close, but right here and here we got two low spots. It looks like it's on both sides, so I'll have to do that same process. Put a piece of wax paper underneath it, and we'll fill that spot. And there's a little spot here that, well, you can see it. But there's a little spot right here where I didn't get super glue in there. or superfill in there. And that'll show up on the fit up, especially on the top. So it's something to spend a little time and fix up. All right. And I use a superfill in a couple spots. I had a cutout here from the eyelet, and over here I had a spot I didn't love around the canopy. So I used superfill to kind of fill it up. The other thing I did was a little bit down here. And in the nose ring I filled it in. I'm going to sand that nose ring out so you have a nice clean finish in there as well. Some other things I did off camera, just so everybody knows, I put the battery disconnect plug in, along with the hatch was obviously in, and then I put the switch. Oh, and there's a piece of 1/32 plywood in there that cuts out and mount the switch. And here is 3/8 balsa that's cut out for a Dean's plug to slide in. All right. All right, so that's pretty close. We'll take care of it next, but I'm going to work on the tip weight box now. Towards the end of the session, I'll do the superfill and then just let it sit overnight. All right, so outboard wing, same thing. There's a superfill around the edge. The outboard didn't fit up as good, as you can see. There's a little bit more superfill in it, but pretty good. All right, so now we're going to put the tip weight box cover on. I had neatly cut out a piece, but now I have to actually get the thing to mount in. And I'll show you a trick on how to do that so you get it flush without having to sand the top in. All right, so here's the piece I had cut out. Here's the top of the tip weight box. So what I'm going to do is get the tip weight box cover in. Which way is the front? I think that's the way it's going to go in. So what I'll do is I'll mark it because you'll turn it around the wrong way and it won't fit in or something. All right, so I just got to clean up the edges a little bit to get it to drop in. Not a lot, just a little bit. So the one thing that's always interesting, people always try to build stuff lightly, which is, you know, what you want to do. You want to build it as light as possible. But the one thing that you really don't want to worry about making light is the tip weight box. Heard quite a few stories of people making ultralight tip weight boxes, and you got to put lead in them anyway. So why bother? So just build them, and if they're a little bit heavy, that's fine because the weight you put, you're going to put weight in anyway. So save yourself the headache. All right. That fit up's pretty good. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a tube in here because I want to stop on the inside. I want to be able to have this thing stop and sit the way it's supposed to. So what I'll do is I'll probably get a piece of either aluminum tube or carbon tube. Let's see what we got. Okay, so a piece of carbon tube. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it in here and then cut it down to size. So 3/4 of an inch. So I got this happens to be a carbon tube, but push rod tube, which is fine. The 440 fits right in, and we just got to make sure we got the height right. All right, so it's too high. We got to take a little off. All right, so I'll sand a little bit off on my grinder. All right, still too high. Gotta take a little more off. Okay. All right, we'll just check this before we glue this down. Just want to make sure that this piece can sit down flat on it. Okay, good. All right. So I put this piece in for two reasons. One, to be able to help you when you got to put the bolt back in, not have to swing it around there and figure it out. Two, to kind of be the support so that it doesn't suck the middle of this plywood down when you tighten it up. Because if you over tighten it, then you'll end up sucking the cover in. So people ask, well, how do I get the tip weight in? Some people like to put the tip weight on the bolt. I just drop I use fishing weights, like they look like little bullets. I'll drop them in, and I pack this thing full of soft foam, so my tip weight doesn't move around. That's how I do it. But again, there are many different ways to do this, so do what works for you. So what I'll do is I'll run the bolt in to kind of hold this centered, just the way I want it. And I'll use some thick CA and some kicker. You want to be careful not to get CA on the bolt because you'll never get it out. What I'll do is I'll drip it around it, and then I'll use kicker to kick it off. I'll give it a second to harden up. Nothing like enjoying a good cup of Dunkin'. Alright, so once that's dry, the next trick is going to be, how do I get this piece that I cut out so perfectly to be able to fit right back in? Because I don't want to sand it because it has a finish on already. So I've been thinking about this, how to do this, and I came up with a pretty creative way of doing it that should work. All right, so all right, so we got give us a little extra clearance here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is make sure that this covers exactly where I want it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is mark it just to see how we are fit-wise. Alright, if you can look at it, by marking with the pen, I can see I got a lot more material over here. The sides are almost all touching, so if I sand this down to almost meet that line, I'll be good. I'll have enough clearance and still stay on the box. Because the one thing, you don't want to have to wrestle with this when you got to put it in. Much better. The other thing, you don't want the blind nut spinning in this, because then you got to cut the top open. Just not what you want. Alright, now just making sure that it's lined up exactly how you want it. Okay. So now here's the thing, right? So it's not exact. So if I push this all the way on, I'm gonna not sit in the right spot. Okay. Okay. So a couple pieces of 3/16 is fine, 1/4 inch, whatever. I'm gonna do is line the inside of the box. Just again, using a stripper so you get a couple of uniform pieces out of it. Okay. I just put a new tip on the thin CA. Again, be careful, you don't want to glue the box together, so you just want to put a couple spots where you tack this together. Okay, you're just gonna tack it. Too short. All right, we'll leave the line. That will be better. Okay, good. Good. Just mark this piece. Okay. All right. Alright, so I put masking tape on to protect it, and then I'll take this and kind of just carefully cut it. I gotta glue that in. Put a little more glue on it. what I'll do is just work it till it's down to just about the paper. Okay. All right, and glue it to it, so that's a plus. That's a plus. All right, so now, if I go to put this piece right on it now, we'll end up being proud. You know, we'll be up higher. So I'm going to put the thickness of this material underneath the edge here, so it raises it up, and then I'll sand it in. Then when I glue this on, I should be perfect. Or almost perfect. Alright, so let's just permanently glue this in place here. Alright, so what is the thickness of the material? 55 thousandths. 65 on the other side. Okay. Alright, so we'll do is get a piece of 16. So I'm sure I got one laying around here somewhere. Alright, what I'll do is use these as spacers here. Just make sure there's no glue on the bottom here. Alright, so this is now a 16th proud, which is what I was looking to achieve. So sand it in. indent it. Bonus. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue in the washer in place. Alright, so we're going to also have to clean up the hole on the skin piece. So we're going to make it a little bit bigger so you can get the bolt in and out without a challenge. I just want to make sure it's dry. Again, the last thing you want to do is you want to glue the cover down. Alright, now we should be low. And it should be able to accept this piece. Let's see. And we should be pretty close. Very close, very close. So what I'm doing is just kind of fitting this piece up here. And I'm also marking the hole where we should make sure it goes to. Alright, very close. Alright, so what's interesting is there's the black piece of carbon runs right through here, and that's about 10 thousandths more, so it's sticking up a little bit there. So I'm going to just dress this down a little. Okay, that's pretty good. Alright, now, where's this piece? Alright, so I want to cut through this. So sharpen tube, look where I lined it up. And just really just work it through. And you're cutting through the fiberglass and so we gotta just push it through a little harder here. Alright, so we're almost through. We just gotta get through the carbon piece here on the other side. This carbon is some tough stuff, boy. Especially once it's been dried, impregnated with resin or CA. It's really some tough stuff. So what I'll do carefully with a carbide blade is just cut it. Alright, so we're gonna have to put we're gonna piece. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Alright, now what I'm gonna do is put a couple of dabs thick CA in a couple spots in order to just tack this down. What I'll do is I'm going to seal all the edges now with this. Q-tip to wipe the excess off. So CA to harden up all the edges. And a piece of 220 paper just to clean it all up. Okay. So there's your piece now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of copper tubing here to clean that up. Just because you want a nice finished look on it, you want to be able to work it up to it. Actually, letting all the CA dry. And it's just about perfect. Got the take a little bit off the bottom to clean it up. But it's a little proud because of the height of the masking tape, but that's perfect because then I can just work it in like that. Okay, so just a little proud. We'll take care of that now.